Hello, I'm an aspiring filmmaker with big goals, and I'm wondering how did you work your way up and assemble a team to work on this independent fan film? Um,
It was the greatest mistake of my life. Now everyone else is paying for it.
That, kids, is poetic irony. Fan films have had an interesting lineage on YouTube. They are a labor of love for an existing property from the filmmakers and artists, often encapsulating all of their passions for those characters that they are paying homage to all in one swift, low-budget package. It also stems the debate of whether these films themselves lend to originality or creativity. At what point does it cease being an homage and teeters on the fringes of pretty much copyright? But that's not the focus of this video. The focus is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time and my favorite Marvel superhero ever created. So a lot is at stake for me as a viewer whenever I decide to invest in virtually anything that involves the wall crawler, whether it be a large blockbuster film, a focused first-party video game, or an intimate fan film. It's in this emotional connection that I decided to put all of my emotional investment in Spider-Man Lotus, an ambitious fan film focusing on the tragedy of Peter Parker as a character. And this easily went into my radar, especially after all the viral hype it started to generate last year. But to quote a spectacular film based on my other favorite comic book superhero,
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
now, I usually don't like to make content surrounding controversial material such as this, but considering that it involves a Spider-Man fan film, and this is a Spider-Man-centric channel, along with Batman, I feel like I have to throw in my hat somehow. Plus, I have a little bit of my own shared experiences attending film school that thematically somewhat connect themselves to the tragic backstory behind Spider-Man Lotus. Plus, I can't disappoint all those Twitter users that were already giving me ideas for titles for the video essay, so thank you guys, appreciate it. So yes, this is going to be yet another video essay on the rise and fall of Spider-Man Lotus. On January 16th, 2021, Spider-Man Lotus was announced via social media platforms. It was going to be written and directed by Gavin J. Conop, and written and directed by Gavin J. Conop. A trailer was released alongside the announcement that featured Conop describing the backstory behind the film, its creation, and its inspirations, mainly Spider-Man Blue and the kid who collects Spider-Man story arc. Alongside the announcement, an Indiegogo campaign was launched showcasing the casting of Warden Wayne as Peter Parker and Sean Thomas Reed as Harry Osborn. The page featured a synopsis of the film, a pie chart illustrating the disbursement of the budget, and roughly a week after the campaign launched, a look at the suit itself by costume team Amazing Spider Lab. The campaign itself showed a lot of perks for those that pledged any kind of monetary value towards the project, such as a new sweater for the production, or a signed copy of the Blu-ray, or a poster, as well as bundle packages for all of these different perks, but the main focus was on the milestone goals. Several of these goals illustrated exactly what this money was going to be going to in terms of the production. $5,000 would provide, as quoted by the Indiegogo campaign, a linear study focused on Spider-Man but limited by a smaller cast. No action, only a simple drama driven by Peter's internal struggle as he faces his own flaws. $20,000+ would be, as quoted, "The sky's the limit. Anything in addition to the initial budget will allow us to flesh out the quality and length of the film like we had never thought possible, and achieve ideas that were previously only a hopeless dream." Well, it looks like the faith in the backers definitely paid off, since the momentum of the $20,000 goal that the Indiegogo campaign set for itself was not only exceeded but jumped over into $25,000, providing more material for the film as it went along. And at the time of this video, the campaign has hit well over $112,000. Nevertheless, all things considered, the campaign was a success. And because of this, the rest of the cast was filled with Mariah Brooklyn playing Mary Jane, Tywin Powell playing Gwen Stacy, and Max Fox cast as Tim Harrison respectively. The film began shooting on June 12th and wrapped on August 14th, 2021. Just a couple of weeks after principal photography had started, the first teaser trailer hit the interwebs, amounting to 115,000 views within 24 hours and going viral eventually. The second, much more full-length trailer was released on October 27th, going viral with almost over 2 million views to date. And this was also a much more fleshed out and nuanced trailer that showcased more of the action, more of the backstory, and exactly what was the main focus and core of the emotional catharsis behind the film and Peter Parker dealing with the death of Gwen Stacy. As the year went on, the editing proceeded, funding closed in November, and additional photography provided by that funding was able to go underway, including an additional fight scene with the Green Goblin, and more promo material and constant updates were given by the stars, the writer and the director, all amounting to interviews leading to a Q&A livestream by Conop on June 14th, 2022, pretty much surmising that the film was underway and was close to its release date. But then, tragedy struck the band. Sorry, I had to. Now, before going forward in this next segment, a couple of ground rules. I'm not going to really focus too much on the screenshots surrounding the controversial material because since then, a lot of people have confirmed that some of them may be fake or doctored or photoshopped. So I'm really going to focus on the actual statements by the parties involved that kind of corroborate and really confirm some of the material that they take responsibility for. So that's really where the crux of this middle portion of the video is really going to center on. On June 18th, 2022, screenshots of Warden Wayne using racially insensitive slurs within Instagram messages were exposed on Twitter, prompting Wayne to issue a lengthy apology acknowledging the controversy. Wayne's statement reads, quote, "Hello everyone, I've decided to come out in regards to certain things from my past. I've always thought it was better to be above reproach and come forward honestly about mistakes I have made when I was younger. This is very hard to say and I feel gross, but I'm coming clean. Years ago when I was in high school, I used to say terrible things. I used offensive language, often homophobic or racially insensitive, casually or in jokes. I am sorry and I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed and sad at who I was, and I'm sorry to anyone I may have hurt years ago, and to anyone I may hurt now by revealing this information. When I was finally able to leave the bubble I was in and find people with a more stable sense of morality, I was able to be told that these things I said were wrong, and I learned and I pushed to change. But regardless of any of this, I should have known better, and I spent every day wishing I hadn't been a terrible person when I was younger. But I can't change the past. All I can do is take responsibility and own up to my incredible shortcomings, and continue trying to be a better person. I hope you all can forgive me. I'm sorry." The next day, director Gavin J. Conop issued his own statement regarding the scandal around Wayne. And they read, quote, "This morning, many of us were shown resurfaced message that Warden Wayne, the lead actor of Spider-Man Lotus, had sent on Instagram. And yes, I am just as disgusted by those messages as anyone else is. They're hurtful, obscene, and offensive. There's no defending them, and the outrage is justified." Another passage of the statement reads, quote, "In the past, Warden has been open with me about his former ignorance, as well as what could surface as a result, and I have done everything in my power to hold him accountable, not only then, but also today and forever. I bluntly told him that this is going to live with him for the rest of his life. There's nothing he can do about it, and that's the reality that he has accepted." Conop then stated, quote, "I can't do anything much as a consequence, as this is a non-profit project and there's nothing that we as creators have gained. However, please do not allow this to detract from the tireless passion that crew members have worked across the board to deliver. These people have put themselves on the line to achieve the vision that I have set forth, and they don't deserve to have their work diminished because of one person's actions. This is disheartening for us all, but we will continue to work towards finishing the movie as it was intended. The character of Spider-Man was made to represent everyone regardless of race, gender, or identity, and he has been since the dawn of his creation. We will do what we can to continue opening this space for the marginalized communities within the fandom, and his legacy belongs to us all." Though well-intentioned at first, it was one of the last lines in his statement that led many to believe that he was complacent with Wayne's past behavior even during production, an attitude that would only make sense a mere 24 hours later. You see, on June 20th, similar controversial screenshots, video recordings, and even sound memos by Conop using racist, homophobic, and xenophobic comments were unearthed on Twitter as well. And though there's an amalgamation as to figuring out which one of them were true or photoshopped, Conop did issue an apology and statement himself on social media. Conop's own statement reads, "The past few days have been unlike anything I've ever felt or seen before. It's the most unprecedented series of events I've ever encountered. I am and always will be one to take accountability for myself and accept where I was wrong. However, many of these are not reflective of the way I currently speak or express myself, and everyone close to me can account for that. All of the real messages are from when I was either 14 or 15 years old, and if they're screen recorded, they're legit. I learned a long time ago about the severity of this all, and I have worked tirelessly to escape those habits. While I can't attest to all of them, I can say that some pretty disgusting screen recordings and screenshots out there are real. In my early years of middle school and high school, the R word along with other unacceptable terms such as the F word were part of my vocabulary, and I had used them fairly frequently. I'm not proud of it, and I wish I had been more mature to know better than to use them. All I can do is hold my younger self accountable for the messages that were me, just as much as I have held accountability for Warden, for not being cognizant enough to realize the immaturity of what I was sending. I apologize to the communities that these may impact, and I spend most days wishing I could redo those years of my life. I'm sure many more messages will surface throughout the day and coming weeks, and if you truly do believe that I have matured, then that's all I can ask for. I do not plan on being active on social media much at all anymore. The film will be released because I owe it to those who were promised it for years now. Thank you, and I am sorry that these messages and comments were once sent by me. End quote. Conop, in a now deleted tweet, reaffirmed that he was stepping away from social media indefinitely, and at the time of this video, no further statements have been put out by either Wayne or Conop respectively. Shortly thereafter, Green Goblin actor John Solange was ousted with what appeared to be ableist behavior on Wayne and Conop's past attitude and history, as well as some racially driven comments on his own part. Statements were then posted on Twitter by the rest of the cast in response, most notably Mariah Brooklyn and Toin Powell. Mariah's statement reads, "Recently, a thread of racial slurs that my co-star Warden Wayne commented years ago went viral. My heart is broken for everyone who witnessed the threads. While the timeline predates the film, I hold him accountable for the hostility revealed." Lotus director Gavin J. Conop has now been exposed for a history of racist comments, ableism, and unreliability as well. Gavin was the underdog, so I blindly supported him over the last year, but I refuse to stand alongside him any longer. It is my moral instinct to remove myself from Spider-Man Lotus, effective immediately. I will not excuse this catastrophe. My scenes as MJ remain, and I will continue to pursue my filmmaking career, yet I will no longer promote my career with Lotus. Lastly, I vouch for the innocence of my friends, Toin, Sean, and Eunice, as well as the countless other hardworking professionals who gave us this chance. The cast and crew grieve what could have been. I wish peace, love, and healing upon those involved. MJ. Toin Powell took to Twitter to also post her own accounts of the whole ordeal. One passage in the middle reads, quote, "I was unaware and shocked by Warden Wayne's history of racism or the messages we all saw today. While I cannot speak for who Warden was, I know that in the year that I have known him, I have not witnessed any racist comments, acts of racism, or hate from him. Regardless, this is in no way excuses his past and the damages done. What Warden has said is inexcusable. My heart breaks for the people who have received those messages or have been pushed out of spaces and communities that had a right to belong to because of Warden's hateful comments. I am especially sorry for the black community who have both been directly impacted by the messages as well as had to watch as Juneteenth celebrations were overshadowed by these racist events on social media." YouTube trailer editor Ultra Sergeant even decided to detach themselves from the project, stating on Twitter, "Hey all, with everything that's come out, I have made the decision to step back from editing the final trailer for Spider-Man Lotus. I personally never experienced any hateful speech, but I cannot morally allow myself to be associated with said speech, and I condemn it to the fullest degree. I am of the understanding that some of the screenshots were faked, so be careful what you believe. However, a lot of them were real, and that is not something I can ignore. I fully believe in second chances, and I truly hope the parties involved can grow and learn from this, and use it to better themselves. Right now, my thoughts are with the people who have been affected by this disappointing situation. Ultra Sergeant." Now, in this day and age with social media, an awful lot of this kind of material resurfacing of somebody's backstory is kind of becoming a little commonplace, but it looks like a couple of red flags were already being planted for the production of Spider-Man Lotus, going even farther back to pre-production for the film involving a storyboard artist who wasn't really paid well enough, as well as visual effects artists who were probably given some misleading information by Conop himself. And Twitter user LowResJPEG took to the social media platform to express his accounts on behalf of the visual effects team. The series of tweets read, quote, "Well, Spider-Man Lotus is trending again for reasons no one could have guessed, me included. During my time on Lotus, I only interacted with a few crew members, but I have never heard of any racism going on, past or present. I wouldn't have joined the project had I known. I can speak for the whole former visual effects team when I say we do not look back on Lotus as a fond experience, and this is retroactively another reason. While Gavin was not outwardly rude to us, on purpose, there was still a level of disconnect that eventually caused us to quit. Some of this was due to Max Arnhammer's work. His animation for the trailer was unusable and caused a 40-hour crunch to get it finished. And despite being fired, he was brought back and I was forced to hand my assets over to him. Gavin stood by him, so baffling. There's a myriad of small things that built up. Death by 1,000 cuts sort of situation. I was miscredited continuously and even sent YouTube tutorials by Gavin to try and help me do my job. What? And now, come to find, we were lied to on top of that. I wish I could be more proud of my time on Lotus, because I really learned a lot. It's some of my most technically proficient work, and it's a shame for it to be attached to a project with this type of legacy now. He then proceeded to add a couple of anecdotes before wrapping up, stating, this whole thread had blown up, so I wanted to add an addendum. Number 1, Gavin isn't solely to blame for the crunch. We originally agreed on a date, which was announced, but unforeseen things happened. The pitfalls were due to miscommunication, not malicious intent. We were compensated for our work, and we were not responsible for all the leaks happening now. Our communication with Gavin ceased in January. All of this new footage coming out was shot well after we left. The Goblin suit hadn't even been made at that time. Now, I know what you might be thinking, because I was also in that same camp. All of this material, all of these screenshots, voice memos, etc., that is incriminating Warden Wayne, Conup, and a lot of other people. What exactly is the source for all of this material resurfacing on social media? Who exactly was the prime leaker behind all of this controversy? This is where the shit really hit the fan and exploded to M. Night Shyamalan level proportions. Turns out that this was all leaked by a 15-year-old kid who has been sitting on it since he was 9 years old. You gotta respect it. Yes, so it turns out Berkman Boom, also known as Matt over on Twitter, posted what he calls the full story. And this is ultimately the twist that this story needed. The post reads, quote, "My name is Matt. I am 15. I met Gavin Conup early 2017. I was only 9, about to turn 10. I looked up to him more than anyone else because I finally had found someone who loved comics like me. He was even going to help me make my own Spider-Man fan film. He was going to write and edit the whole project. He eventually started to get more followers and changed his platform to GJK Central and started to drop me. I had other friends, but no one who I left understood me like Gavin. I wanted to be just like him. Having him drop me made me extremely upset. I found these messages from the last couple of years and got upset. I was too young to realize how problematic and toxic he was. I've said stupid things in the past, I won't deny it. But like I said, I was very, very young and very easily influenced by those I looked up to. I was heavily influenced by him and thought what he did was edgy and cool. I've grown in the last couple of years having to watch him become very well known. I wanted to come out and expose him a while ago for different reasons than I am now. I wanted to let everyone know that he doesn't care about those who have been with him since the beginning. I was too scared to come forward because of how strong the Lotus fan base was. I was too afraid to be attacked by everyone for exposing Gavin for something that may be considered silly or petty. Every time his accounts would say something like that, it wasn't some admin. It was him. I'm disappointed in him for not taking full accountability and putting the blame on others. Following the trail of vengeance against the controversial actors and director, full unfinished scenes from the film were then leaked by an unknown source online. The scenes in questions were crude and unpolished, lacking sound effects, color grading, and original score, but the gist of what the film was aiming for was there, including one notable choreography between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. Needless to say, many on social media were conflicted on the fan film's release, with some opting simply to just not watch it when it does come out, while others argued it should be cancelled entirely. The Amazing Spider Lab, the costume team behind the film, posted their own statement on Twitter, and it's the perspective that has yet to be put into question, and arguably the most introspective one. Can the film be watchable now, and how far can you go to separate the art from the artist? Their post on Instagram is a little bit lengthy, but one particular slide stood out to me and I wanted to read it. Quote, "The movie's not just about two people. It took a whole team to make it, and we don't deserve to be screwed up this way. This didn't have to happen. We didn't deserve all this shit. We can't even be happy about all of our hard work anymore because we're afraid it will always be associated to racism. It doesn't have to be this way. Not all the people involved deserve this treatment, and the movie deserves to be out there and be seen." And it was while I was reading Amazing Spider Lab's comment that I thought to myself, how would I perceive this as an audience member? Am I going to watch the film? Am I going to feel weird doing it, knowing the backstory behind the director and the stars involved? And it kind of also made me think a little bit of my own shared experiences going to film school. dealing with what could potentially be similar egos that could thematically connect with what really went down here with Connop himself during the production of Spider-Man Lotus. Now, I know that I'm not going to be able to tell like some of the more affluent stories that might have gone down at the film school that I attended. I can only speak on two specific instances that I was at least in the room for. One was not so much a story as it really was a remark. Long story short, there was a friend of mine that I met at film school. We collaborated on a couple of projects. One was actually the first project that I ever dealt with as far as being a director, having to write my own story within a day, shoot it the second day, third day, edit it, put it together, and just crudely present it in front of the class. And it was meant to be an exercise, an assignment to really get a gist of how production kind of goes down. And so a couple of years later, I actually collaborated with that same actress that I worked with on that first project on a second, much more elaborate short film for an assignment that involved more shooting days, involved more work on the script, more direction with the actors, getting multiple takes done, and getting more stuff done during the post-production process. And while we were screening dailies, she was watching the finished result, and she told me that she really enjoyed working on the project with me, and that I was the first director that she had worked with who wasn't a dick. Eventually, I felt complimented by this remark, saying that I was like the nicest, most easygoing, and better to work with director that she has had the pleasure of working on a project. But the immediate emotion that I felt was actually a tinge of sadness, because here we were on simply just our, I think it was the sophomore or junior year in film school, and yet she has already had her run-ins with egos from these directors, thinking that they're all high and mighty, not realizing that they're just working on student films at a film school. And this would then bring me to my second experience, which was basically like this workshop form of class that we were having at one point, and we were all kind of gestating ideas as far as projects of what we wanted to get done. We were separated into groups. I was with my own group of actor, cinematographer, and producer working on our project that we were going to be presenting at the end of the quarter. And within earshot, I can hear this other little scrawny director. He had kind of like this arrogance about him, and he was legitimately confronting the teacher, trying to get permits or forms filled out so that he can rent lighting equipment and camera equipment out of what was called the Cage, which was the department of the film school that houses all of the very technologically advanced but also really expensive material that's used to get these films made, these short films and assignments shot. And yet he wanted to take all of this stuff and take it off campus, go into a separate location that's like miles away, cast SAG-AFTRA actors as opposed to actors who go to the film school, and all the while trying to present arguments as to why he just didn't want to work with things within the confines of the film school. He kept wanting to push for these bigger things, but he was coming off as a really arrogant little prick about it. And I was just thinking to myself, like, dude, relax. You're not Kubrick. You're not Spielberg. You're just doing an assignment at film school. And I can hear this going down within earshot. We were all within the same room, and I can literally hear him from across the room trying to argue with this teacher. And this is the exact specific scenario that made me think of what might have gone down here with Gavin J. Connop. That's not to say that there's an excusable explanation behind his racist and ableist and xenophobic behavior from the past, but tying that with how things were going down between him and the visual effects department and that storyboard artist who wasn't paid out enough, or whatever kind of altercation went down with that particular party, it reminded me of how sometimes, depending on who is dealing with what, because all of us creatives are able to tackle projects at a different pace and with a different approach, and some are able to handle it better than others. In the situation that happened with that student at my film school and with Gavin J. Connop in regards to Spider-Man Lotus, is that sometimes these directors are then embracing this sort of God complex, kind of enforcing this hierarchy that they're the ones on top and everybody else is beneath them. Sure, there's a hierarchy as far as the position is involved, as far as how things work within the machine, but you also can't be putting yourself on top of other people from a metaphorical standpoint and treat them like they're below you. You need them as much as they need you. It's all a collaborative process. And oftentimes, when dealing with bigger projects, especially ones that involve superhero characters, superhero comic book characters that they probably grow an affinity for and have a huge passion and love for, can often project those tendencies off of that superhero complex, and therefore, we end up with the cautionary tale of Spider-Man Lotus. But that's just what a cautionary tale is supposed to do. It's supposed to advise caution, specifically for those directors out there who want to make that fan film that they've been wanting to make, centering on Batman, Spider-Man, Predator, Star Wars, any kind of property that they know that they can bring something new and refreshing to the table. Have at it. Just know exactly how to go about it the right way, with the right budget, but also the right crew and also the right mindset, so that when the potential is then presented to you, you don't have any kind of skeletons in the closet like what unfolded here. And that's exactly why I also wanted to make this video essay, not only to hopefully kind of prove the point across that things could still go in the positive direction of hopefully a fan film of sorts, showing the potential of what a filmmaker can do and possibly bring us the next Nolan, the next Kubrick, or the next you. There is a way to go about this the right way and the wrong way. And this was a very enlightening saga that was able to put all those things in perspective for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button down at the bottom section, or hit the thumbs down if you didn't like it. Comment below what you guys' opinions are on Spider-Man Lotus. Are you still going to watch the film, or do you think that feels kind of weird knowing all the stuff that kind of unfolded here towards the tail end of its release? And if you guys want to check out other videos from the channel surrounding all things Spider-Man and Batman, be sure to check out the one that's showing up on screen right now. As always, stay humble, guys. I'll see you on the next one.